Okay, my government name, as the kids say, is Jeremy Gale Sr. I'm married, have been married for going on 8 years. I have four beautiful children. My girls are 18 and 14. My boys are 4 and 6. That's right. You heard correctly. My wife and I produce we do two podcasts together, and then we produce about four more. And on the side, sort of a side thing with our company, our LLC, what we do is help people set up their podcasts, and we troubleshoot with them, and just sort of try to make a nice content creator community in order to the whole concept of iron sharpens iron. So we do that together. We have other aspects of our company, but they're just kind of in pre-production at this point, so I won't go into that. You can find us at our website at Studio GWB. That's G as in girl, W as in Walter, B as in boy. StudioGWB.com. There you can find, any information, all of our socials, our merchandise, everything. It's all kind of in one sloppy place, and we apologize for any issues ahead of time because this is very new for us. But you can find me across all social media at WTFJ. Oh yeah, let me get this right. At WTFRAPJ. There it is. Yeah, you can tell I'm without my producer, man. I'm not as clean and smooth without her. You're getting the raw J-Zilla, and so that's a little bit about me.
Perfect, perfect. So let's dive right into. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey being a father and a husband, and how did that all start? And one question I always like to ask on top of that is, did you see yourself as a husband and father way back when we were like, I think I can actually do this?
Ooh, I like it. I'm gonna answer your questions in reverse order. Um, I came from a single parent home. I have two younger sisters. We're all roughly 2 years apart. So two younger sisters, single mom, and I just could remember always saying, I want a giant family, right? I've always wanted to be married. I've always wanted to have a bunch of kids running around. Till I started having them, then it was like, four is enough. You don't know till you get in that situation. But yeah, so I've always wanted to be a family person. And how I got started, mine was that of sort of Jonah and the big fish story in the Bible, right? I was on my way. I was working out of Georgia. I was on my way to Australia to sign up for a dual educational work program, which I would basically travel around Australia and the surrounding places of Japan and Europe and work for 6 months while going to school, and then I'd go to the next city. I was single, and I was very vibrant, and all my bones and joints were pretty healthy. And so I thought, this is a cool, slick way to see the world and finish out my education, as well as make a little money. But I had this moment where one of my dearest friends, a person I met when I was 12, 13 years old, we dated a little bit in high school. We stayed in contact throughout that entire time, on and off, as friends do. But I had a moment where I realized, oh my goodness, I'm in love with this woman, and so made my plans to do a complete 180 from Australia to New Mexico, where she was with her two beautiful girls, and now they're my two beautiful girls as well, and that's where we started our journey, and it's been quite the education, very very fulfilling, but very trying, and because kids can be relentless as much as they are joyous. And yeah, I've enjoyed every minute of it, man. Good, bad, and ugly.
For me, I had a similar story, but it wasn't as what's the word I'm looking for? Movie-esque. It wasn't, one of those romantic
Oh.
romantic comedies, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
I grew up without my being raised by my mother and my father. I was raised by my grandmother. So single parent, just a different generation like you. And in my teens, I was like, Terrain, let's get a family, right? That's my mind. I'm like, Terrain, get a family, because you didn't have one growing up and you didn't know what it was like. And
Mm-hmm.
I had plans to do so. And the girl that I was dating at that time, She was like the same thing, right? It was, yeah, we're going to get married. We met each other's parents, and then everything went downhill.
Oh no.
No happy ending to this story. And it was interesting because how many people actually meet the parents of the girl or the guy that they're dating and it doesn't work out like that, right? Like we didn't even get to the point where we're walking down the aisle. We have the second guess. But it was an interesting experience for me because it made me realize that I was looking for all the right things in all the wrong places with that
Yeah.
person. Right. And I wanted it so bad that I was willing to sacrifice that. And then I flash forward to where I am now, where I'm more comfortable, I'm more established, and I can do the things that I want to do. Because if I want to be a father, and maybe you went through this, J-Zilla, I want to be the best father that I can be.
Yes.
Right. I want to be super dad. I want to be dad of the year. I want to be on Time Magazine with my picture on it.
Hey, there you go.
Dad
Father
of
of
the
the year,
year,
is what we
right?
call it on our show.
Yeah, father of the year. Did you still, as you were getting your children and you're going down that path, did you have that same goal that you want to be the best dad that you can be because of the situation you came up in and you want to try to correct or break the generational trauma?
I'm of the mind, breaking of the generational promise is definitely part of the formula there. But I was of the mind that, oh man, that's a really good question. You're making me like, I keep coming up to, forks in the road of my thought process here. I'm of the mind that the summation of a person stems from the whole of their experiences and the experiences of people they trust, right? So for me, I had heard a bunch of horror stories. I heard a bunch of great stories. One thing that always stuck with me is, I've seen, and I'll say this about my Caucasian brothers, right? Is that I've seen situations where husband and wife, have kids. It doesn't work out. They split amicably, and new person, step parent moves in, and they all get along. They all go on vacations together, and they all share like, hey, we're not going to be able to pick up, child one through whatever. Could you handle that for me? Sure. Me and my new wife will be right over. So I always had the Walt Disney brand of hope that, oh, if that situation can work out, I can figure out any other situation. But then I got around a crowd that just had, in our community, a bunch of baby mama issues, and I saw the ugly side of things. And at that point, I said, you know what? No, I'm not. I've relegated myself to I'm not getting married. That dream is dead. All right, so let's try to build myself up as a person, because I am not going to get in that situation. Because what I recognize in my father, which we have a great relationship now, but what I recognize is that he was this lovable, huggable, jolly, black giant, right? who enjoyed art and poetry and music, but he was, I'm the runt in the family. He's 6'7" or so, an absolute giant of a man, but he enjoys all these other eclectic, things. And so I was trying to figure out, how did he go from that? How did my mother go from strong, educated, like intellectual softball player, right? And then how they get together and then it turned out so badly. So I started operating based out of fear. There's no way I'm going to get married because I don't know what changed my father to who he eventually became. And so I just said, I'm going to build my empire alone. And I told my now wife at the time that, yeah, I don't think I'll ever get married, And she was like, oh, what about me? And I was just like, no, I just don't view you like in that way. Ooh, that could be rough. And she just, it's funny, we joke about it now because her reply to me was, yeah, we'll see. And so after I got married, like one thing that stuck with me in that speech of hers was, don't be afraid. Like, she says, I've always loved you. And I get it if we're never going to get married, but don't give up on your dream of marriage. I've known you for a long time. You've always wanted to be married and have a bunch of babies. Don't give up on that dream, and don't get so bogged down with, I've got to be this perfect version of myself before I get with someone and start having kids. I think a proper relationship is you get together, love each other for who you are, and then you improve and build upon that, and build your empires together, which is what we're trying to do now.
some of my friends or some of my male friends are going through that. They're struggling with the fact that they may not be good enough for what they want in life and they have yet to realize it. And when it gets mentioned, like how your wife said, don't give up on your dream, you can do this. But on the flip side, when it gets mentioned to them, they want to fight. They're so resistant to the idea. And I think, as you mentioned, that is within our community because growing up, I spent so much time around Pakistanis and Indians where
Hmm.
family traditionally is so strong out in the East, right? Like, let's say Chinese, Japanese, things like that. They don't have time for this nonsense,
Right.
basically, right? It's like, okay, when we get together, what we do represents the family to the point where it's like, hey, we need to make sure that the family is good. Now, when I look at things within ourselves, we have a little bit of a struggle because you mentioned a good point where you said that you've seen the ugly side, which is a lot of people in our community having a lot of kids with multiple fathers and they're unmarried. When I took myself out of that scenario, because I grew up in a poor area, when I moved to the suburbs and I started seeing everything family related, where
Mm,
you had parents bringing their kids to football, to hockey, to softball, to baseball, where you had the family dinners where you'd
hmm.
go over and no one eats until everyone comes to the table, says
Hmm.
grace, and do stuff like that. You're like, I can't get a little bit of a biscuit before someone comes over, but
Right.
it's like a different vibe. Did you, when you got married to your wife, who you love so much and for so long, and you started raising your
Mhm.
children, did you reflect on the fact that you're like, hey, I have exactly what I want at this point in my life when many, many years ago, everything I saw was a complete opposite?
Hmm. Yes. So for us, like I said, man, having a family is very educational. And I think I would suggest anyone who begins a family, you have to we one of our shows is urban academia. We had a guy who's a felon and myself who, I went to Vanderbilt University, which is a private college in the Southeastern Conference. So we're the we the ones that get beat up by the Tennessees and Alabamas and Georgias, right? But we're in the conference to kind of help you know, the averages in the classroom stay above board. Okay. So but what I took from all of that is, what I would suggest to people getting involved in a relationship and raising a family is kind of what we have as show rules on urban academia. And that is everybody's a little bit right, everybody's a little bit wrong. Each of us has something of value to share. That's just something, a foundation that just is for us. And that's worked out well because if you hold true to that, you're not trying to interrupt someone when they're talking because you respect them and you don't want to be interrupted. It seems fairly easy in theory, but as we all know in science, my fellow scientists out there, the theoretical yield is never 100% what the actual yield is. But if you have the mindset that if I see the person in the relationship and I see they get frustrated, I want to now take on some of their frustrations with them and see what are the possible solutions. Even if it's just let me be frustrated and angry and go away with the kids somewhere. That's a solution. But you have to be willing to want to improve whatever, negative situation arises and then improve upon all the positive situations. And I think as long as you have that format, I think that's also my theory as to why the Eastern world does so much better than we do here in the West. One of the blessings and the curses of American culture is this idea that you come here and you make up your own rules. Whereas in India, everyone has an agreed upon ideal of, the gods and the rules and how we work and how family works, right? And it's not that the women are so much, whipped into shape over there. It's an agreed upon cohesive collaborative unit where I know that I may not meet my husband until my wedding night, but I know that like here's what a wife does, and the husband is taught here's what to expect from your wife, and here's how what the wife expects from you. and it's such a shared, I don't know, hive mind sort of thing that you can have an arranged marriage and then they stay together for 60 years, and they learn to know each other, and love comes after the marriage. So I don't know. That's one of those things that I just think both parties have to be willing to say, we want this to work. We're willing to do the work, and we're willing to be flexible as to how to go along, creating a cohesive family unit.
For those who are
So
watching on Facebook, YouTube, and my social media, please continue to follow along, subscribe, and share. And we will be back for more fantastic interviews like the one we have with my new best friend here, J.